This soldier commands a $95 billion empire while his people starve on the streets. Iran's Revolutionary Guard isn't just military. They're secret billionaires controlling oil pipelines, telecommunications, and luxury real estate across Tehran. Picture this: imported supercars, private jets, and mansions worth millions, all while average Iranians survive on $200 monthly. How did warriors become Wall Street tycoons? What happens when soldiers secretly rule the entire economy? This hidden dynasty has fooled the world for 40 years, building wealth through sanctions, war, and corruption. Tonight, we expose Iran's most dangerous shadow empire and the shocking double lives of military moguls who've turned revolution into ridiculous riches. The 1979 uprising was just their beginning. While Iranians queue for bread, Revolutionary Guards feast in gold-plated mansions. These aren't just soldiers, they're shadow kings ruling a $95 billion empire. Oil pipelines, tech networks, luxury towers, all secretly owned by men in uniform. They've turned sanctions into profit machines, war into wealth, revolution into riches. Average salary, $200. Their monthly champagne budget, $50,000. How did warriors become oligarchs? What happens when your protectors become your predators? This military mafia controls banks, borders, and billions while citizens struggle for survival. Tonight we crack open Iran's most guarded secret, the generals who got greedy, the revolution that got corrupted, and the empire built on everyone else's poverty. This is their hidden fortune. What you're about to witness has been buried in classified files for 40 years. This is the ultimate power grab, how Iran's military secretly became richer than entire nations. We're talking about generals who own oil empires, commanders controlling telecommunications, and colonels living in billion-dollar compounds. While the world watches their missiles, they've been building the most successful war-to-wealth machine in history. Leaked documents, insider testimonies, financial records they never wanted you to see. This isn't just corruption, it's the blueprint for military capitalism. Right now, as you watch this, they're making millions per minute while their people suffer. The revolution promised equality, but delivered oligarchy. Tonight, the curtain falls on history's greatest military heist. But first, you need to understand what the IRGC really is, because this isn't your typical military story. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps was born from chaos in 1979, right after Iran's revolution toppled the Shah. Their original mission: protect the new Islamic Republic from enemies, both foreign and domestic. Think of them as Iran's elite special forces, the regime's ultimate guardians. Fast forward to today. They command over 125,000 active personnel, control Iran's most advanced weapons, and basically function as a parallel military to Iran's regular army. But here's where the story takes a wild turn that nobody saw coming. Somewhere along the way, these revolutionary soldiers stopped just fighting wars and started building business empires. We're talking about a transformation so audacious, so unprecedented, that it rewrote the rules of military power forever. They didn't just protect the revolution, they monetized it. Picture this. You join as an idealistic young revolutionary, ready to die for your country. 20 years later, you're sitting in a boardroom, not a bunker, making decisions worth billions. Your uniform opens doors to oil contracts, construction deals, and import licenses. Your rank becomes your credit rating. And I'm about to show you exactly how they pulled off the greatest military-to-mogul transformation in human history. This is the story of how soldiers became CEOs, how patriotism became profit, and how Iran's guardians became its greatest capitalists. Let's start with their crown jewel. And I mean this literally. They control the oil beneath Iran's feet. We're talking about the lifeblood of the Iranian economy, the black gold that funds entire nations, and somehow a military organization has gotten their hands on it. Meet Khatam al-Anbiya, which sounds like a religious foundation, but is actually the IRGC's massive construction and engineering arm. This isn't some small military contractor. We're talking about a corporate giant that has secured contracts worth tens of billions of dollars for major pipeline projects, refineries, and energy infrastructure across Iran. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. They didn't just win these contracts through competitive bidding, they created a system where they basically award contracts to themselves. Imagine if the Pentagon owned ExxonMobil, Chevron, and Halliburton all rolled into one. That's the level of control we're discussing here. The numbers will blow your mind. This military organization now controls an estimated 20% of Iran's entire economy. Let me repeat that, because it sounds impossible. 20% of everything. Think about that for a second. One military unit, originally designed to protect the country, now controls a fifth of the nation's wealth. To put this in perspective, that's like if the US Army secretly owned and operated Apple, Google, and Microsoft combined. We're talking about economic control that makes Russian oligarchs look like small-time operators. And this is just the beginning. While most militaries drain national budgets, the IRGC has flipped the script entirely. They don't cost Iran money, they make Iran's money, then keep most of it for themselves. They've essentially privatized war profiteering and made it their official business model. But here's the genius part. They use their military authority to eliminate competition. Private companies can't bid against them because they control the permitting process. Foreign companies can't compete because they control import licenses. They've created a monopoly protected by guns and government authority. Oil revenues that should flow to Iran's treasury instead flow to IRGC bank accounts. Pipeline profits that should fund schools and hospitals instead fund private jets and luxury compounds. They've turned Iran's natural resources into their personal ATM machine. But oil is just the beginning. They're watching every text you send. The IRGC has built and controls much of Iran's internet infrastructure, mobile networks, and surveillance technology. Every phone call, every message, every click, they own the pipes it flows through. Think about this for a moment. Your military doesn't just protect you, they're literally monitoring your digital life while getting rich off it. The IRGC doesn't just run Iran's telecommunications, they are Iran's telecommunications. When you make a call in Tehran, you're paying a Revolutionary Guard company. When you send a text, it's traveling through their networks. When you browse the internet, they're collecting the data and the profits. This is surveillance capitalism taken to its absolute extreme. They've weaponized your phone bill. Every Iranian citizen is essentially paying their own watchers, funding their own oppression, one data plan at a time. It's brilliant and terrifying in equal measure. But here's where it gets even more sinister. They don't just passively collect this information, they actively use it for business intelligence. Imagine knowing every business deal before it happens, every competitor's strategy, every private conversation about investments or partnerships. They're not just Big Brother, they're Big Brother with insider trading capabilities. The revenues are staggering. Tehran's telecom market is worth billions annually, and the IRGC has positioned themselves to capture the majority of those profits. They've turned digital surveillance into a cash cow. Every Iranian with a smartphone is basically a walking ATM for the Revolutionary Guard. And the international implications are massive. When foreign companies try to do business in Iran, their communications are potentially monitored by the same organization that funds proxy wars across the Middle East. Corporate espionage has never been this systematic or this profitable. And when you're done texting, they own the building you're standing in. Luxury developments across Tehran, shopping malls, commercial complexes. The IRGC's construction companies are behind many of Iran's biggest real estate projects. Picture this. You wake up in an apartment built by IRGC contractors, using materials imported through their trading companies, financed by banks they control. You grab coffee from a shopping center they developed, work in an office tower they constructed, then go home to a neighborhood they designed. Your entire physical world has been shaped by Iran's military-industrial complex. But this isn't just about construction, it's about control. When you control the buildings, you control the economy. Every lease payment, every rent check, every property sale generates revenue that flows back to IRGC coffers. They've essentially turned Iran's urban landscape into their personal real estate portfolio. The scale is mind-boggling. We're talking about developments worth hundreds of millions of dollars each, luxury shopping centers that would make Dubai jealous, residential complexes housing thousands of families, commercial districts that define Tehran's skyline, and behind every project, IRGC fingerprints. Here's the genius part. They use their military connections to secure the best land deals, often at below-market prices. Government land that should belong to all Iranians somehow ends up in IRGC hands for development. They're not just building Iran's future, they're buying it wholesale and selling it back at retail prices. The human cost is devastating. Housing prices in Tehran have skyrocketed partly because the IRGC treats real estate as investment vehicles rather than homes for people. Young Iranians can't afford to buy apartments in their own capital city because their military has turned housing into a luxury commodity. They've created a system where your protectors are also your landlords, your builders, and your creditors all at once. But here's their most audacious move. They've turned international sanctions into a profit machine. Through dozens of shell companies and front organizations, they've created networks that circumvent sanctions while generating billions in revenue. What was meant to cripple them has actually made them richer. This is economic jujitsu at its finest. While regular Iranian businesses struggle under sanctions, the IRGC has built a shadow economy that thrives on restrictions. They've created fake companies in Dubai, Istanbul, and Hong Kong that exist purely to launder trade deals. One day they're selling oil as a Turkish company, the next they're importing electronics as a Malaysian firm. The West imposed sanctions to pressure Iran's government. Instead, they accidentally created the world's most profitable smuggling operation. Every restriction becomes a business opportunity. Every embargo becomes a monopoly chance. So what does $95 billion buy you in Iran? Let me show you something that will blow your mind. Tehran's elite districts, Elahiya and Zafaraniya, where property values hit $10,000 per square meter. Here you'll find imported supercars that somehow made it past sanctions, private clubs that most Iranians don't even know exist, and commanders who travel internationally more than most diplomats. Walk through these neighborhoods and you'll see Lamborghinis parked next to Ferraris, McLarens cruising past Bentleys. These aren't cars that officially exist in Iran. Sanctions supposedly block luxury imports. But when you control the ports, the customs, and the import licenses, sanctions become suggestions rather than laws. The mansions are architectural marvels that would make Beverly Hills jealous. We're talking about compounds spanning multiple acres, complete with underground parking for car collections, private helipads, and security systems that rival government facilities. Some of these properties are worth more than Iran's annual education budget. But it's not just the houses, it's the lifestyle. Private clubs, where membership costs more than most Iranians earn in a lifetime. Exclusive restaurants, where a single meal costs what a teacher makes in 6 months. Wine collections featuring bottles that officially don't exist in the Islamic Republic. Here's the gut punch. While the average Iranian makes $200 a month, IRGC commanders spend that on lunch. We're talking about inequality that makes Silicon Valley look egalitarian. The wealth gap between Iran's military elite and ordinary citizens is so extreme it defies comprehension. Their children attend international schools costing $50,000 annually, while Iranian public schools lack basic supplies. They vacation in European ski resorts, while their countrymen struggle to afford heating. They wear Swiss watches worth more than most Iranian homes, while preaching revolutionary values to the masses. This isn't just wealth, it's obscene wealth, built on the backs of people they swore to protect. They've created a parallel universe where sanctions don't apply, where luxury flows freely, and where military rank translates directly into unlimited purchasing power. But who are these shadow billionaires? Let me introduce you to Iran's most powerful invisible men. These aren't just military commanders, they're dynasty builders. Their sons run tech companies, their nephews control import businesses, their cousins manage real estate empires. They've created a system where military rank translates directly into business opportunity. Meet the new Iranian aristocracy, families whose patriarchs rose through IRGC ranks and transformed military connections into multi-generational wealth. We're talking about clans that make the Kennedys look middle class. Each family controls different sectors of Iran's economy, like feudal lords dividing up territory. Take the telecommunications empire. While the patriarch holds a senior IRGC position, his eldest son runs the mobile networks, his brother-in-law controls internet infrastructure, and his nephew manages the surveillance technology contracts. It's a family business disguised as national security. The real estate dynasties are even more brazen. Fathers use military authority to secure prime development land, then transfer ownership to sons who've never worn a uniform. These young princes of the revolution drive Maseratis to ribbon-cutting ceremonies for luxury towers built on land their dads acquired through IRGC connections. And the wealth transfer is already happening to the next generation. We're watching the creation of Iran's first military aristocracy. Kids who grew up in mansions, attended Swiss boarding schools, and speak perfect English are now inheriting billion-dollar business empires. They've never fired a shot in combat, but they're reaping the rewards of their father's wars. The most disturbing part: these second-generation IRGC princes often have no ideological commitment to the revolution. They're pure capitalists who happen to be born into military royalty. While their parents at least believed in something, these heirs believe only in profit margins and stock portfolios. They're creating a hereditary system that would make the Shah's regime look democratic. Military families are becoming Iran's new nobility, complete with inherited titles, generational wealth, and zero accountability to the people they supposedly serve. This isn't just corruption. It's the birth of a military monarchy disguised as a revolutionary republic. But here's the human cost of this secret empire, and it's heartbreaking. Iran is experiencing one of the worst brain drains in its history. Educated young Iranians are leaving in droves, not just because of political oppression, but because they see a system where military connections matter more than talent or hard work. Picture this. You're a brilliant engineering graduate from Tehran University. You've worked your entire life to build something meaningful for your country. But every contract you bid on goes to an IRGC-connected company. Every loan application gets rejected while military-linked businesses receive government funding at zero interest. Every innovation you develop gets copied by competitors who have access to state resources you'll never see. The message is crystal clear. Your merit means nothing. Your education is worthless. Your dreams don't matter unless you have a Revolutionary Guard uncle or a military father-in-law. Iran's best and brightest are realizing they're living in a rigged game where the house always wins. Private businesses can't compete when their competitors have access to government contracts, cheap government loans, and the ability to circumvent international sanctions. The IRGC isn't just controlling the economy, they're strangling it. Entrepreneurs, who should be building Iran's future, are instead planning their escape routes. Doctors, engineers, programmers, scientists, the human capital that could transform Iran into a modern powerhouse, are booking one-way tickets to Toronto, Frankfurt, and Sydney. They're not just leaving Iran, they're leaving because Iran has left them behind. The irony is devastating. The Revolutionary Guard was created to protect Iran's people, but they've created a system that's driving Iran's people away. Every brilliant mind that emigrates, every startup that relocates, every patent filed in another country represents wealth and potential stolen from Iran's future. They've turned patriotism into a luxury that only the connected can afford. The revolution promised equality, but delivered a military caste system that's suffocating everything it was meant to protect. This isn't just Iran's problem, it's reshaping the entire Middle East. International sanctions were supposed to pressure Iran's government. Instead, they've created a system where only the IRGC has the resources and connections to navigate the restrictions. We've accidentally made them more powerful, not less. Think about the unintended consequences here. The West wanted to isolate Iran economically, But sanctions have actually concentrated power in the hands of the one organization with the military authority, international networks, and financial resources to circumvent restrictions. We've essentially eliminated their competition and handed them a monopoly. While legitimate Iranian businesses collapsed under sanctions pressure, IRGC enterprises thrived by exploiting loopholes, bribing officials, and using front companies. Every restriction became a barrier to entry that only they could overcome. We didn't weaken Iran's military, we turned them into the country's only functioning multinational corporation. And their business networks don't stop at Iran's borders. IRGC companies operate across the region, funding proxy groups and expanding Iran's influence through economic leverage. From Lebanon to Iraq, from Syria to Yemen, IRGC shell companies are buying influence, funding militias, and establishing economic footholds. They're not just exporting revolution, they're exporting business models. Local militias become business partners. Proxy wars become market expansion strategies. In Iraq, IRGC construction companies rebuild what Iranian-backed militias destroy, creating a profitable cycle of destruction and reconstruction. In Lebanon, they control import networks that fund Hezbollah while generating massive profits. In Syria, they're securing oil contracts while their proxies fight Assad's wars. This is economic imperialism disguised as revolutionary solidarity. They've weaponized capitalism to achieve what military force alone couldn't accomplish: regional dominance through financial dependency. Countries that should be partners have become economic colonies of Iran's military-industrial complex. The result? Iran's neighbors aren't just dealing with military threats, they're competing against an adversary that controls both the guns and the money, making resistance exponentially more difficult. This is unprecedented in modern history. Military organizations have always had economic interests, but never on this scale. The IRGC has created something entirely new, a military corporation that's more powerful than the government it serves. Sure, we've seen military-industrial complexes before. The Pentagon has defense contractors, Russia has oligarchs with military ties, China has state-owned enterprises, but none of them actually are the military. The IRGC isn't just influenced by business interests, they are the business interests. They've merged war and wealth into a single, unstoppable force. They've essentially privatized a country's military while militarizing its economy. It's like Amazon decided to start their own army, or if the US Marine Corps bought Apple, Google, and ExxonMobil. The lines between soldier and CEO, between national defense and corporate profit, have completely disappeared. But here's the thing about empires built on secrets and inequality: they're inherently unstable. And cracks are already starting to show. The Iranian people aren't stupid. They can see the mansions, count the luxury cars, and do the math. When your protectors live like kings while you struggle for bread, loyalty becomes a luxury you can't afford. The same revolutionary spirit that created the IRGC is now turning against them. Internal power struggles are intensifying as different IRGC factions fight over increasingly valuable economic territories. When there are billions at stake, military brotherhood becomes corporate rivalry. These aren't soldiers anymore, they're competitors wearing uniforms. And internationally, their success has made them a target. The more powerful they become economically, the more attention they attract from intelligence agencies, financial regulators, and international law enforcement. Success has made them visible, and visibility is dangerous when your entire business model depends on operating in shadows. The system they've built requires constant growth to maintain loyalty and fund operations. But economies don't grow forever, especially isolated ones under sanctions. When the money stops flowing, loyalty stops following. So here's the trillion-dollar question. The IRGC has achieved what no military force in history has done. They've become richer than the country they serve. But empires built on secrets don't last forever. What do you think happens next? And more importantly, what would you do if you discovered your military was secretly worth more than your entire country's budget? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to see more investigations into hidden power structures around the world, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. Trust me, this rabbit hole goes way deeper than you think.